Thanks for choosing us. We are your home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism. Well, today marks exactly 2 months since President John Dramani Mahama took office. Now, with only a 4-year mandate, many argue that he may not have enough time to achieve his vision for the country. Additionally, his 120-day social contract with the people of Ghana raises the urgency of delivering tangible results. As we assess his progress, it is crucial that we track his key initiatives and determine whether his reset agenda is on course. Well, joining me in the studio is our lead data analyst here at Joy News, who will break down the president's major intervention since he took office 2 months ago. Isaac Ofieje, thank you so much for your time. Let's start with some of the key things he promised the people, and what has he been able to deliver on since he assumed office?
Well, I mean, a number of promises, but so far we know that the government has been busy with issues around the economy, education, as well as energy, because these are, I can use the word, the 3 big E's in every government's, ability to get the country moving. That is why we've had so far a national economic dialogue. We've had a dialogue on education, one sort of like a negotiation and talks around the energy sector as well. And so these are the 3 big aspects of the government that they possibly feel that if you're able to get these 3 aspects in proper perspective, maybe you can start thinking about other promises. But we know that simultaneously, government has also been going ahead doing other, honoring other promises that they made in their manifestos. The promises are many, and to be fair, the president still has more than 80 days or 60 days to implement all that he has actually codified in his social contract. Still early days yet, but 60 days is a big milestone. That is why we are currently analyzing that 2 months so far. How time flies. We just went to the polls, had a new president, and just 60 days, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting. There are a number of promises. The no academic fees for level 100s will feature heavily. We all don't know how it will be featured in the budget. But what we understand is that we will get a perfect picture of this 120-day social contract in terms of the progress made so far in the 2025 budget. That is why today's cabinet meeting was very crucial.
Because we know in a very long time.
Absolutely. Usually you have cabinet meetings before the budget moves from the executive to parliament. But because of the goodwill this government is enjoying, almost everything around the government seems to be good news. And that is good so far. You heard from Professor Adai, who says that Mahama has been able to use his honeymoon really well, trying to get Ghanaians along. But the most important thing around this whole conversation and 120-day social part, we are not going to run you through everything. We're going to talk about the salient ones, especially looking at the fact that you have a budget coming up in the next few days. Tuesday is a big day for this government. They will be reading their first budget and will get a clear indication of what will be contained in that budget as well. But what we are learning so far from the cabinet meeting that was had today was that it was really heavy on the energy sector, the economy, definitely on tax cuts, because we know there are 4 taxes that have been earmarked by this government as draconian. They've tagged those taxes as draconian, and as the president promised that in his first 120 days, he is going to scrap these taxes. I'm talking about the COVID-19 levy, which we estimate, about some, amount of money, some 2.4 billion Ghana cedis is the total amount that government is possibly looking at today, and say that, look, if we want to scrap e-levy, we are letting go some 2.4 billion Ghana cedis. Another tax handle has to do with the COVID-19 levy. Although that tax may not sound so sweet, or may not sound so good in the ears of Ghanaians, it's been one of the backbones of the Ghanaian economy in terms of raking in a lot of revenue. This year, if government decides to let it go, then we are talking about some 4 billion Ghana cedis that will be going so far. There's another tax called the betting tax, which we know those who call themselves investors have been calling the government that you promised us that, I mean, in your first 120 days, you're going to scrap it. We are expecting your finance minister to come to parliament and tell us that this tax doesn't exist anymore. If government decides to let go of this, our estimation at the Joy News Research Desk shows that government will be foregoing some 1.2 billion Ghana cedis. If you add all of this, just 3 taxes, we're talking about close to 8 billion Ghana cedis.
And this is coming at a time that there are concerns about the economic outlook.
Absolutely.
The president painted a very grim picture about the state of affairs when it comes to the energy sector, cocoa board, and how much we owe as a country. So if you're dealing with a lot of debt you need to clear, and then you're letting go of one of your key revenue measures, how do they plan to bridge the gap? That's a question we're posing to some of the managers of the economy.
Absolutely. They say if a blind man, well, I don't want to use the word blind. I mean, if somebody who is visually impaired wants to throw a stone at you, definitely they say that person is standing on something. It definitely tells you that maybe there is a portion of the economy that this government is looking at that maybe we are not privy to. We understand from the National Economic Dialogue that this government should start looking at property tax. Number of experts have said that, I mean, if you really tackle property tax well, you definitely wouldn't be talking about betting tax, emission tax, COVID-19 levy and all of that, because that can fetch you significant amount of money. So why don't you look at other components and not, introduce some of this regressive tax handles like the e-levy, which many have said that wasn't good for the country. Now, I mean, these are some of the alternatives that government is looking at.
But on the other, more taxes, though, Kofi, isn't that robbing Peter to pay Paul?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. Property tax has been in the books for a long time, but the collection has been the problem. And we understand that, I mean, we've put enough infrastructure in place to start the collection. I mean, we didn't have a proper addressing system, but with the introduction of the GPS system where now everybody has a digital, address, it is easy to identify buildings and all of that. So that side has been tackled. Now you need to look at how you can structure and do the collection. That is the stage that kind of conversation is at the moment. But it is interesting that government will be foregoing some, close to 7.6 billion Ghana cedis in terms of tax revenue. And definitely we'll be looking at elsewhere. Another side that we are currently learning that government is banging its hopes on is the gold board, which will act like the cocoa board, right? Where they're going to regulate the mining and purchasing of, gold mine from small scale mining. And just like you have cocoa board buying cocoa and using it as a strategic commodity to support the government, that is the same way that the gold board is going to behave like. But it will be interesting to see the details of that, initiative and how government is going to use that to support the economy. But going ahead, you will see that there are a number of promises that the government has actually made in its 120-day social contract. A number of them that has to even deal with the girl child. And since today is, we are celebrating women.
That's right.
Yeah, the president spoke about the sanitary pad that they are going to distribute. Free sanitary pad, very important to me. And I think that this is one of the key promises in the 120-day social contract that many young ladies, young girls out there are looking at the president and the vice president, in fact, to honor this promise. There are a number of them that we can actually analyze for you, but the most important ones has to do with the economy, the energy sector, education, and all of you, what have you. The biggest thing that will feature heavily in this year's budget will be compensation of employees that government is going to pay to the public sector. What we know is that already the government has decided to go ahead with a 10% increment in base pay, and then also, wages. That tells you that that's 73 billion Ghana cedis that the IMF was projecting. Maybe we might see that figure going up a bit, or it maybe stay the same. But that figure is really huge, and it will be interesting to see how government will find money to do that. So if you are looking at this 120-day social contract, definitely, I spoke about investors, expecting the president to cut the betting tax and all of that. A review of import taxes on vehicles and equipment for industry and agriculture. This is very important because we know that the backbone of every economy is agriculture. And this government is saying that there are certain equipment and vehicles that they are exported for agricultural purposes. They do not understand why they should have high import duties on them. So they are going to review it. That will make it available for those who are into agri to have access to this, this equipment to actually operate and vehicles to operate with. I mean, legal reforms to implement the 24-hour economy. This is one big policy that everybody is actually looking forward to. We've had synopsis, we've had pockets of announcement that the passport office is going to go 24 hours. Some government agencies are now running 24 hours. But that is not the 24-hour economy possibly that the president promised. It's a bigger pie. It's not just some of this pocket that we are seeing. So it will be interesting to see how that will also feature in the budget on Tuesday, how government plans to roll out the 24-hour economy, which many private sector businesses are actually looking forward to. The 24-hour economy accelerates export development and counsel to boost trade. Very important. We are recording trade surpluses, but what we know is that the country's import bill is rising, and since 2023 it's been in excess of $10 billion every year, and that poses a lot of stress onto the city and gives a lot of pressure to the city. So how is government going to also do that? Ghana Medical Care Trust, Mahama Cares. I mean, this is also very interesting. Reminds me of the Obama, health insurance policy, fund for healthcare support. This is important. I don't know how, dialysis treatment will feature under the Mahama Cares. I mean, we've had the Obatampa, Ghana Cares Obatampa. We didn't see anything really out of that big promise. That I think it was around 100 billion Ghana cedis or $100 billion. I'm not so sure. But that was a big promise by the former administration, and they could not pull their way through. We all don't know how the Mahama Cares is going to be like, but it's supposed to be, we are supposed to see it coming to fruition in the first 120 days. It will be interesting to see how that comes. Now, again, International Women's Day. So let's talk about seed money for Women's Development Bank. Very important. This will be a special bank, not just any good initiatives in some of the banks we have just for women, but this is a bank dedicated to the development of women and women in business. And so it will be very important to see how this bank will be run. I'll be interested. It will be interesting to see you walking into a bank, and maybe everybody you see in the bank is possibly a woman in terms of the run affairs of the bank, the daily operations of the bank, and everything about that bank is about women. Very interesting initiative there. It will be good to see how government comes about some of these things. And I spoke about the free sanitary pads for female students in primary and secondary schools. Again, very important for our women and girls. How the president will do that, also be interested to see how that is going to pan out. But I mean, scrap ban or salvage vehicles, I mean, this is also one thing that many who deal in this aspect of the economy are also looking at how the government is going to run that as well. New bill to reform government scholarship administration. This is a big elephant in the room. Scholarship secretariat, how government is going to, talk about that.
And that is key because there have been concerns about individuals getting scholarship who many people feel are really not deserving. They are not in need. And so we want to see how they plan to reform that.
I mean, the interesting thing is that sometimes you can even get the letter and the disbursement might not even come through. And that's also another painful experience that anybody can go through. You have the assurance from your government that they're going to do this. You get to the USA or you get to anywhere, UK, you're expecting your government to do the disbursement.
And that has always been the challenge for individuals outside the country. Most of the times they have to send us mails letting us know that they're compelled to fulfill their course and come back into the country. And that's the sector that we're looking forward to, some of the new reforms to manage that sector.
Yeah, I think I'll end with, the aspect that speaks about tourism and agriculture, culture. This is why it's important. I mean, I have always said that if you list the big foreign exchange earners for the country, I will always put tourism first, because we know that the tourism sector brings in close to or more than $3 billion every year. And I still don't understand why we've not been able to, find ways and means to make this work for the country. The tourism sector brings an amount equivalent to what we are looking for from the IMF. It is interesting to see how, we've not been able to really bring this together. It's part of the 120-day social contract. And for me, it's important because now we are losing, strength on cocoa. We are not getting so much from gold as well. We export a lot of gold, $11 billion last year. But if I tell you that just about $2 billion was retained in the country, maybe you might be shocked. And so some of these things like tourism, remittances, things that will bring money directly into the country, directly into the hands of people, and then private sector is also important. And how government will tackle that will be key. We've spoken about the NED team and then some of their recommendation. It will be also interesting to see how that features in the 2024 budget. But we've heard from the energy minister. He's painted a picture for us to see. He says that for the rest of the year, possibly we need some $700 million to buy liquid fuel to keep the lights on. Why is this important? Because the 24-hour economy needs stable energy to run. So how this government will tackle the energy sector will be key. It will actually be the yardstick for measuring how effective the 24-hour economy will be for state.
And we're looking forward to some of the key things that they plan to do, especially post this economic dialogue. We just don't want them to come together and speak and talk. And
absolutely.
We want to see action. And so it's a good time to bring in my guest as we just do analysis here on the polls. We're looking at the performance of President John Dramani Mahama. It's been 2 months since he assumed office, and so my guests, they will be joining me shortly. We just heard a while ago from spokesperson of government, Felix Ofosu-Kwakye. He's been painting a picture of some of the key things they plan to do, especially in the energy sector, to fix some of the key challenges that they have highlighted since they assumed office. He's been giving us details of that cabinet meeting as well. Let's listen.
They had a total of 27 staffers and 256 political appointees. That is people that they gave all manner of names to. 256 of them. They also had 9 ministers of state. 9 ministers of state who worked at the presidency. But you can count them amongst the 126 ministers or so that were appointed. This was 2017. In 2020, when they presented the presidential staff list, I beg your pardon, to Parliament, there were 36 presidential staffers and 270 political appointees at the office of the president. Mind you, I have not spoken about the civil servants. There were over 700 civil servants who worked under the office of the president, under the MPP. By and large, that number has remained same, barring some change. Now, these are civil servants who are seconded to the office of the president. They come from various government departments and agencies. So often in the analysis, they are not factored in terms of additions that have been made to the size of government. We often highlight the numbers of political appointees. So there were 306 political appointees under the MPP in 2020. In 2022, and I have all those reports, they presented those reports to Parliament, so they are matters of public record, and you can verify for yourself. When they presented the reports for 2022, it turned out that there were 44 presidential staffers and 292 political appointees. So in all, there were 336 political appointees who worked in the office of the president under the MPP in the year 2022. The numbers remain the same for 2023 and 2024. President Mahama will come nowhere close to this number. So currently there are 30 people you can call presidential staffers or presidential aides, some of whom are classified as directors who work under the office of the president. We are in the process of considering support staff for those who work at the office of the president. And we can state emphatically that it will be nowhere near half of what the MPP did when they were in power. So let the records be set straight that any claim that President Mahama has appointed 100 ministers and is hiding some in the presidency is blatantly false. The number of ministers who have been appointed is 56. The Honorable Junapo is a member of parliament. On a number of occasions, he has been at the appointments committee where he has joined the vetting of these ministerial nominees, and so he knows that there are no 100 ministers. And then when it comes to the staff at the office of the President, President Mahama has committed to reducing the numbers drastically. And therefore, by every account, this government will be the smallest in the history of Ghana. And the reason why that is important is that it enables the government to make significant savings. As I noted during my contribution to the debate on the message on the state of the nation, if in the past there were 126 ministers and you reduce the number to 60, that is 66 less Land Cruisers that you have to buy. We all know the price of a Land Cruiser today.
Well, let's get on Zoom now and speak to political science lecturer at UCC, Dr. Jonathan Asante. Thank you so much for your time here on the Pulse. Also on Zoom is the Deputy General Secretary of the NPP, Haruna Mohammed, as well as Alidu Seidu. He's a political scientist. And we're just looking at so far the president's tenure since he assumed office and their positions about his performance. I'll start with you, Alidu Seidu. What's your personal assessment of his performance since he assumed office 2 months ago? You might have to unmute for me so that I can hear you clearly.
So good afternoon to you and good afternoon to your viewers.
Good afternoon.
I think the first point of assessment is having a benchmark. And when you look at what this government did, they set a benchmark on timely basis. If you look at basically performance and campaign of political parties, you usually start with a manifesto. And the manifesto are mostly political promises that you seek to do when you are elected. What this government did was to move forward just beyond the proposals, policy proposals, and placing specific timelines on them. So in my first 120 days, I seek to achieve this. In the next 1 year, I seek to achieve this. In the next 2 years, those kind of things. So it gives us a very interesting benchmark to be able to measure its performance. If you look at what it has been able to do within the first 60 days, it is actually remarkable in terms of interventions that the government has made. So it has made a lot of interventions in the energy sector, in the education sector, and also under the economy and several other sectors. Then there were preparatory. So if you look at the energy sector, for example, when they first came to power, there was this idea of fuel shortages that they were able to deal with. I remember the Julius Deborah, chief of staff. The chief of staff chaired that particular meeting, and they had several interventions in the education sector when senior secondary students were complaining that there's no food, whether they will open or not will open, and it's instruction to the buffer stock to release food. So there are several interventions of that kind. Then look at preparatory grounds, where we have the National Economic Dialogue the National Economic Dialogue and the National Dialogue in Education, and then the Operation Recover All Loot and the preparatory work that they have done for possible prosecution, and several other preparatory policies. So all these preparatory happenings are supposed to kickstart formidable policy implementations that will come. But apart from that, there have been several other promises that he has made that he has been able to do, including the reduction of ministers to 60, which we have seen the record number of days that a government has set its cabinet, be able to organize and put its cabinet up. You are looking at the reduction of fares in the Hajj program, which was 75,000 to 62,000. You are also looking at fulfilling the promise of adding additional holiday for Muslims when during the Eid. That one has been done. You are looking at security effort. His visit to Baku and reactivating the traditional option of settling the Boko crisis and seeing how things can be done. You are looking at the ban and then the reversals on government appointees acquiring and buying state lands. You are looking at asset declaration, where he led the rule in declaring his asset first and calling on all his appointees. So there are a whole lot of things within this very short period that he has been able to do. And there's still a lot to that are outstanding, including the promises to review taxes, including the provision of the code of conduct for appointees. You are looking at a whole lot of other things. But all these things we can see whether it will come to fruition or it will not when the budget is read. So I think once the budget is read, we'll see some of these things that will be captured and those that may not be captured. But when you ask me on a score, on a scale of 100, what this government has been able to do, I think I'll score it very high in terms of the achievement. But I still believe that
on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you place their performance so far?
I think I'll score a 7 out of 10 in terms of performance, what it has been able to do. But that doesn't mean there's still a lot outstanding. For example, if you look at the Galamsey menace, it's still something that is coming out throughout in the news. We haven't seen a lot that has been done, though they may be effort, but I think it's still something that government have to give a lot of attention. And other critical issues that he has inherited, that he promised to deal with, which he still hasn't made the effort to do. So I still think it's still early days yet, but if you ask me to score the government within this short period, I think 7 out of 10 is not bad.
Alidu Seidu scores government 7 out of 10. He admits that it might be early days yet, but then so far he ranks their performance as great. Let me bring in Haruna Mohammed. He is Deputy General Secretary of the NPP. I want to get your initial thoughts. Your government, having left office, we have heard from President John Dramani Mahama paint a grim picture of the economy that he has received and that you handed over to him. Honestly speaking, what's your assessment of his first 60 days in office?
Good afternoon to your cherished viewers. Did I hear you say first 60 days in office?
Yes.
Is it really 60 days?
It is, because 2 months.
So in 60 days, out of that's 50% of his promise on the 120 days.
Yeah.
And when I checked on your scorecard, you scored him 6 out of 26. So roughly mathematically, that's about 20% of what he has been able to. Out of the 6 that you have scored him, some of them are activities that he actually began, which he has not completed. I believe that you have ticked nominating within 14 days his officers in terms of those he is going to use to work, which was not completed on time. If you check the date, it should have been on the 20th of January, but this was done beyond 20th of January, so it was not an achievement based on target. You look at the constituting the leanest government and the most efficient government under the Fourth Republic, and he indicated that this will be done within 90 days. Even though it's not up to the 90 days, it cannot be taken to be a complete representation of performance, but this should be a work in progress. So if you also check holding the National Economic Dialogue, I can say that yes, they have done, but we cannot have a result attached to that. There is difference between input, process, output, and outcomes. So you cannot virtually be looking at output, which is numbers, with respect to outcomes. So outcomes must be the measure. But today, you cannot measure the outcome of the National Economic Dialogue. Again,
before we move on from the dialogue, I just wanted to find out, as a political party, you were invited for that dialogue. Why did you fail to show up, really?
We were not invited for the dialogue. I state again, we were not invited for the dialogue. I did have an interview on this particular matter where I was pointed to the fact that Fifi Kuti had mentioned that the MPP was indeed invited. I said the government of Mr. John Dramani Mahama as president is not an extension of the NDC headquarters. So if indeed the MPP was going to be invited, it was not in the mouth of the National Democratic Congress General Secretary to indicate our invitation or not.
But
There
a
was
key
going to be an
member
invitation.
of the planning committee, Professor John Gachi,
I am
said here
saying-
on the
I
Joy
am-
News
I
channel
am saying-
that the
I
NPP
am
was
saying
invited.
that-
Are you saying they lied?
I am telling you that we as MPP, I sit at the National Secretariat of the MPP. As I speak to you, you can see my boss picture behind me, the General Secretary of our party. We have not received any document with respect to invitation to the National Economic Dialogue. Same as the Education Dialogue. Nobody had invited us. We are a party that believes that human capital development of our country, developing the capacities of persons within the country who are going to be the future leaders of our country, are very much important and key. So if an invitation was extended to us, the leadership of the party would have taken a decision as to who is going to attend to this particular all-important event. Mind you, in the first instance of his same economic dialogue, we are not invited. They went to Senti. We are not invited as a political party. So that has been settled.
But as key managers of the economy, allow me to come in at this point, as key managers of the economy, the previous managers of the economy, you ought to have been present, shouldn't you have, just to get a sense of what exactly you plan to do?
But see, what at all would they be looking out from us? The point is clear. When we were handing over of political governance to His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, we handed an economy where we had 23.8% of inflation rate. That is just something that is just a little above the IMF target of 22%, as just opposed to an inflationary rate we took from them of 15.4%, which had exceeded the IMF target by 5.3%, which was a target of 10.1%. So an excess of 1.8% and an excess of 5.3%, it tells you that we have overperformed and we handed a healthy economy to them. You check our GDP growth where we handed over to them. We took over a GDP growth of 3.4%, where there was a target of 5.4% that they did not achieve. We handed over an economy of 6.4% with a target of 4%, which we have exceeded over by 2%.
So based on your books, you appear to have done so well. But the president has painted a very grim picture. Allow me to come in at this point. The president has painted a grim picture about the economy. During his first State of the Nation address, he said that we're, quote unquote, in crisis. And that's his description of the economy you left behind. Crisis. He painted a grim picture about key sectors of the economy, the energy sector, cocoa board, all drowning in debt. And you say you don't want to be a part of a process that could help fix some of these challenges. Is that the case?
Firstly, that is why we have continued to refer the people of Ghana to 2013. In 2013, President Mahama was handing over to himself. In fact, he was the President of the Republic from July 2012 and handed over to himself by default because we challenged the results of the 2012 elections in court. Lo and behold, he was sworn in as president, and he handed over to himself as president who had spent the unexpired period of Professor Mills and handed over to himself. What did he say? He said the economy was mismanaged when he was the vice president and subsequently became the president of the republic. He said, what is the key word there? Lamentation. So he is known to lamentations when clearly he knows that the figures and the data do not support what he is saying. But however, it was a doom on the people of Ghana because investors were scared. President Mahama was indirectly telling investors to run away. He was indirectly building no hopes onto the people of Ghana. When he was interviewed and asked, are you the hope of the people of Ghana? He said, certainly he cannot be the hope. So he was stating the fact, what has been the state. And he was also stating a fact related to his own book. He wrote, My First Coup d'etat. He said that as a young man riding bicycle down the lane, he could not take a decision on his own. So it was a difficult task for him to take a decision to realign himself to the true fact. An economy that you handed over a deficit of trade balance of -2 of GDP, and somebody is handing over a surplus of 5.9 to you, you call it an ailing economy? A current account balance that you handed, which was a -3.1%, which is in negatives, that is a deficit in nature. Somebody is handing a surplus of 4.2% of GDP to you, which is surplus. And international reserves, you handed over of a 3.5 month of cover, which is 6.2 billion. Somebody is handing over 8.9 billion of 4 months to you. You say it's alien? This is clearly a dishonesty.
Haruna, stay with me. Stay with me. I'll come back to you as we look at other sectors of the economy and your honest opinion about how they have managed the economy so far. But let me bring in Jonathan Asante. He's also a political scientist. I'll start with your assessment. First 60 days in office.
Firstly, just a little point of correction. It is political analyst, not a political scientist.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Great. I think that the country that we are running, it boils down to leadership. And I believe that the kind of leadership that the president is currently providing is something that we must all doff our heart for. What I see in President Mahama, let me reiterate again, I am saying that the loss that he suffered in 2016 was indeed a good omen, not a bad one at all. We are having a different president altogether. And you could see, when you find out from Global Info Analytics data that came in 17th of February, 2025, 74% of Ghanaians that were interviewed said that the country is now headed in the right direction, as opposed to 29% in November 2024. And that was under the leadership of President Akufo-Addo and that of Dr. Bawumia. Now, 76 approval rating for the job that the president is doing, as opposed to about 17 or so in the previous regime. Now, what I'm seeing now is a consensus-building leadership. Consensus-building leadership in President Mahama. And that is the more reason why his scoring is very high. Because if you look at the various sectors of the economy, what are we talking about? The economic dialogue is very important in the sense that knowledge does not always lie in the head of those who have been given mandate to run the affairs of the nation. It is just a privilege that all of us cannot be president at the same time. So it's a privilege for an individual to be given that opportunity. But if he realizes that I can tap into the expertise of citizens of this country so that we build that consensus, I think that is quite a mark of a good leader. Apart from that, let us not kid with issues of in education, for example. Education presents a humongous problem on all our on the nation, in the sense that from the primary, especially in the public sector, from the primary to the secondary, they are all in bizarre shape. Does it? I mean, look at it, for example. Yesterday, someone was telling me that the child is vacating and coming to stay in the house for some number of months. Meanwhile, the months that he stayed in school, are shorter than the one that is coming to spend at home. So as a nation, there is the need for that consensus building, a change in direction, and to ensure that the education of our children do not suffer. I mean, today, if you look at the educational sector, for example, if someone made an A1 in maths, and the person is given a combination like that in the university, says he cannot do the maths, how did you get A1? So we are top dressing the issues. So I believe that the kind of leadership the president is providing now, I'm not surprised that his rating is quite high. And I think with that consensus building approach to leadership, he will succeed. Though he has 4 years, I don't think that the years really matter. It is the impact that he'll be able to make within that period.
Thank you, Mr. Jonathan, for that point. Let me bring in the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, Mustafa Gbande. Thank you so much for your time here on The Pulse. We've been hearing from Jonathan Asante and Dr. Lidu Seidu applaud this administration for some of the key policies they have ensured that they are implementing within their first 60 days in office. We know that this administration promised Ghanaians a 120-day social contract. From where you sit, how would you rate your performance so far?
Good afternoon to our colleagues on the other line. I think that one thing that you say of the last few months of President Mahama's reign as president is the effort to keep a cool, calm, collective pace of governance. Our focus is to build a Ghana that can contain each and every Ghanaian, where a platform is created for every single Ghanaian to prosper. In view of the actions that we have seen in the last 8 years, we are confronted with several crises as a country. The conversation have not been whether or not a government can solve all the problems we are faced with as a country, but the quality and focus of leadership. Today, you don't have rascals in governance again. You do not have people who have excuse to solve the problems of the people of Ghana. President Mahama's effort is to confront the problems that affect every single Ghanaian. We have done what the previous government put into. The last few days, we've called for an economic dialogue. I heard my other counterparts saying they were not invited, and that is a mark of dishonesty. I think the MPP is better in talking than solving problems. And so it didn't make any difference whether they attended or they didn't attend. But what is important is that President Mahama extended an invitation to every well-meaning Ghanaian who had anything to contribute to solving the problems that confront every single Ghanaian, created by Akufo-Addo, President Akufo-Addo, former president, and his regime. The MPP failed to show up. The people failed to show up. If you say they were not invited, how did Addison, the former governor, got invited? He was present at the ceremony. The finance minister, Honorable Amin Anta, and Kenufuriata, who are the bedrock of the problems that we are facing today, failed to show up. The energy minister, who became the running mate of the MPP in the previous election, failed to show up. These were managers of sensitive areas of an economy. The Agric Minister, Honorable Brian Achampon, who was in charge of our food security, failed to show up. Indeed, I can tell you that you see the level of peace in Ghana today because Ghanaians have the assurance that a transparent, honest government is in place, and President Mahama is fulfilling it. All the noise you see from the MPP is to turn our problems into politics. Let's normalize noise making. Let's normalize the use of vulgar words. Let's normalize insults. Let us say that NDC have also failed, so that at the end of the day, the conversation is politics as usual. But President Mahama is committed to resolving issues of quality education, which I've heard my other senior talk about, issues of job security, issues of food security, issues confronting our health. Is it not surprising that after 2-3 months of exiting government, the finance minister of the government would have to seek medical attention outside the country? And yet the MPP doesn't see anything wrong with it. They don't see that that singular act undermines their existence as a government. They do not see that. They failed to provide medical facilities for the people of this country, but yet they chopped and spent and stolen from the people of Ghana. President Mahama says, even the project that you couldn't complete, we will complete them because they are good initiatives for the people of this country. The MPP says that they didn't see all of these initiatives, but I can assure you that for me, I'm an extremist, politicized person as an executive of a party. President Mahama, who is the president of this country, has tried so much to strike a balance where he's trying to satisfy a bit of the political party, he's trying to satisfy civil society, he's trying to satisfy other people who are not exposed to political parties so that we can build a country together. That is what President Mahama is doing. So again, you see clearly the difference between hot-headedness and a collective governance. Ghanaians are at peace. Ghanaians are settled because they know that the regime that was a national security threat to our own existence is put right. And at least the MPP pride themselves that they know how to steal than the NDC. But we are in power to govern and to create a platform for all Ghanaians to prosper.
Thank you so much, Mustafa Bande. He is Deputy General Secretary for the NDC. Now, let me wrap up with my guest on the line, Dr. Alidu Seidu. I'll wrap up with you. Just 1 minute, please, on Zoom. I just want to get your closing remarks. And then I'll also come to Jonathan Asante as well, and then wrap up with Haruna Mohammed. 1 minute each.
Okay, thank you so much. Governance is a process. And the way you begin relative to the resources that are available to you, but also relative to the human resources you are able to put together, can help you to achieve a lot. Within this short period that this government has started, we have seen a lot of positive attributes that if it's going to continue to build on, it will be able to achieve a lot of the promises that it has promised Ghanaians, fulfill them, and then be able to do more. So I still believe that it has started well. It shouldn't be complacent and should build on this particular foundation that it has laid. And I think he'll be able to achieve remarkable good things that it has promised Ghanaians.
And let me bring in Jonathan Asante. Your final remarks, 1 minute. You will have to unmute for me to hear you clearly. Whilst you unmute, let me just wrap up with Haruna Mohammed. We've been hearing from Mustafa Bande some key concerns he has raised. He says that, unfortunately, your submission that as a political party, you did not receive an invitation is a mark of dishonesty. He goes on to state that the president indeed extended an open invitation, really, to every well-meaning Ghanaians, and you failed to show up. Your final remarks on that, 1 minute, and then we'll let you go.
Well, firstly, I saw that you gave my colleague Mustafa a very smooth engine to run. He was just running without scratches. But when I'm going to speak, a lot of scratches come in.
That's I disagree with you. But then
you are my good friend.
That's I disagree with you. But then let me give you the smooth platform to also land.
Well, thank you. I want to reinstate again. I don't know whether Mustafa Bande is the recipient of letters at the MPP headquarters. It's absolutely untrue that we were invited. Let's look at it this way. You have gone to describe us as persons who have mismanaged the economy. You are calling them to come to do what? Because you said we have destroyed the thing. You are calling us to come to the dialogue to even do what? He's talking about mentioning energy minister, mentioning former finance minister. For God's sake, you should check the handing over notes. All these persons have clearly indicated the state of the economy, the state of their sectors in their respective handing over notes as we handed over to them. He mentioned about President Mahama making sure that he's getting a lot of people across the board. This is an exposure to every meaning Ghanaian that those who had portrayed themselves as civil society and the MPP had the cause to complain that these persons were clearly speaking for the opposition NDC then has been clearly rewarded by President Mahama, and everybody is looking at it because we all know how these persons, the roles that they have played in the campaign of the NDC. So it is not true that he's appointing from civil society and appointing from where and party and all that. That is not true. He's appointed those who have actually worked for him. And that is what he has done. We are not faulting him, but it is clear for you to be able to let us know where you stand. And that is what we really appreciate. I heard them speak about the number of presidential staffers and also mentioning about those who had worked at the Office of Government Machinery. And he's saying that this is the most efficient. Please, we are not interested in looking at quantity. We are looking at quality. You can have the leanest number ever. You can have 10 people whose salary will be more than even 100 people. So the cost component here is what bothers the people of Ghana, not the number of people. So expenditure is the clearest point. And that is why Honorable Abu indicated in Parliament that these are the criteria set in the laws. And if you appoint this and that, look at their regional organizers. They have been appointed as presidential staffers. They have been equated to deputy ministers of state. And these are things that we are all cross-checking. These are things that we are looking at, that the expenditure it brings to the good people of Ghana, it is what matters, not the number of people that is appointed. Again, I thought that we would have had enough time to look at the 3 E's, because I heard your researcher, your lead researcher, he made a very clear and brought the conversation on table as to how we are going to chart. One, on economy. We all know that President Mahama has not submitted any budget. He has no any commitment when it comes to matters of the economy. So basically, he's enjoying from the goodwill of His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. And whatever expenditure they do now, whatever they have in their kitty, whatever impact they make within the strides of economic management is from what we have left over to them. In terms of energy, what have they left? Today, what we left for them, it is what is being worsened. Now, companies cannot work. Small businesses that would have channeled their capital to buying and fostering on to look at materials that they would have been buying every day, they would have to use it to go and buy a fixed asset called a generator. A generator that will reduce cost of doing business for them and increase cost of management of their business sectors. What about education sector?
Haruna, I would have to let you go at this point. You might have to wrap up in 30 seconds because I have given you the smooth platform to land and you've been landing for the past 3 minutes. So please, in 30 seconds, please wrap up.
Yes, please. Persons with disability have gotten admissions into the universities. They have not been supported as President Mahama has said. First year students have gone to school. Nobody has paid their fees. Up to today, people are questioning. And these are matters we have to look at. Clearly, on the 3 E's, John Mahama has 0/10. And that is the score I am going to give him.
Thank you so much, Haruna Mohammed. He is Deputy General Secretary of the NPP. And that's how we wrap up that conversation. We're looking forward to the budget presentation, really. Jonathan Asante is still with us. 30 seconds, Jonathan, your final words as we let you go.
Well, I just wanted to say that the level of hypocrisy on the part of the opposition may create a situation where they may stay in opposition for quite some time. You will have to give credit when it is due. The man is showing consistency in leadership. He says he's going to give his 60 ministers. The cost implication is there. He says that his people will not fly first class. That brings some cost implications. And, of course, look at Independence Day, cutting down the budget over 90%. That level of consistency in leadership is something that we must all praise. And if we really want to get to wherever we want to get to, we must really encourage him to do more. And you see the last one, saying that the students have not been paid their fees, those with disability. You're the same person saying that the president has not even presented his budget. So how is he able to do so if the budget has not come? You cannot approbate and reprobate. And I think that it is also not fair on the part of the president or the government.
Thank you so much. You're still watching The Pulse, and we'll be taking a quick breather here on The Pulse. When we return, though, we're celebrating women across the country. Ahead of International Women's Day, we'll be having a conversation with some key figures in the media space in the country very shortly after this quick turn. And we'll also tell you about the environment. We'll speak to Arocha here on The Pulse. Please stay tuned in. Thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. Now, today we are celebrating women across the country and around the world. And as we celebrate International Women's Day, female students of Unimark here in Accra have been reflecting on the impact of their mentors and how that has helped shape their career. And they've also been sharing advice on what exactly they plan to do moving forward. They've been interacting with my colleague Esther Nkrumah.
Mentorship has a way of shaping our paths, helping us reach our full potential. As we celebrate International Women's Day, we're exploring how mentorship is helping young women grow, build confidence, and reach their full potential. We're here at Unimac IJ to interact with some students to know the women in their lives that inspire them. Hello, ladies. Hello. I'll start with Rama. In your journey, I'm sure there are certain women that you look up to that inspire you to do more.
Yes. And so for me, I'm studying communication. So there are lots of women out there in the journalism field, in the communication field, and even in the political field that I look up to. When you come to the political field, there is this woman that she inspires me a lot, Joyce Bawa Mokhtari. Not because she's politically inclined, but how she carries herself, even when engaging with the media, when she's asked certain questions on shows, how she answers the questions. I mean, she speaks like she knows where she's going to. And when you come to the journalism field too, this woman, MFA Pao, I admire her a lot. She's also very confident. When you watch her on TV, when she's interviewed, recently I enjoyed her interview with Afenyo Marken, because she's a woman, but she didn't allow the political leader to bully her. She was very confident, and I think it's because she's also passionate about her field, and she's always learning and training herself.
First is my mom. She inspires me a lot, Madam Pisa Gunito. And then Anita Ekufu. She's a broadcast journalist and she works with Media General. She inspires me a lot in terms of the way she does her presenting and the way she hosts shows and all of that. I love the way she does it, and so I want to be like her.
Myself, as a young lady and a Muslim, there are a lot of opportunities that if you want to, grab that, or if you want to achieve a certain point or target, you struggle to get there. So when I see any woman that has, worked hard and get to a certain position, that person really inspires me, because I ask myself that we are living in a country or a nation where women suffer to get to certain positions. So when I see a woman at some level of maybe position, heading something, that woman inspires me. But there are two people that really inspires me. I'm a journalist. I'm studying journalism, and Anita Eskin. She inspires me in a lot of ways. The way she, command the profession when she stands in front of a crowd, the way she commands, the way she, she will speak for the crowd to listen to her. She inspires me in everything she does.
Aside from mentorship, what other resources do you think young leaders need for them to strive? I'll start with you, Felicia.
Okay, I think networking opportunities. So I think creating networking opportunities for us, the young ones, so able to meet those we look up to and share their life experience with us. And also, I don't know, a little bit of funding. You see, there are so many young entrepreneurs, women coming up, but due to one or two things, they don't have the funding to go up there and to shine. It will really be nice.
Mentoring and funding opportunities. So this year's Women's Day theme is for all women, girls, equity, empowerment. How does this resonate with you?
I think this theme aligns with the affirmative action bill that has been passed. Yes, I think although it's like international theme, in the Ghanaian context, we can resonate with it more, and then we can use it to work. But like they've always said, leadership by example. The president promised that he's going to make sure that 30% of his cabinet ministers are going to be females. Yet, the number of females we are seeing are not reaching that 30%. So if it's a bill that the leaders of this country have sat down to reason and pass just to empower young women in the country, I think they should lead by example. And then aside that too, I think when you come to various institutions, they are doing very well to eliminate this kind of perception that women are very weak, women are vulnerable, and for that reason they don't have any reason to compete with males in some kind of positions that they are looking up to.
Looking at inspiration, I think that you have to be your own inspiration first before any other person can inspire you. So if you had an advice to give to your older self, what would you tell her?
To my older self, one word that I have come across recently that I really resonate with my older self is sophisticated. I want my older self to be that woman, very aware, very educated and intelligent. So to my older self, if you are listening, please be ready, because I am coming.
I want my older self to be the best version of myself. I want my older self to hear that and stay true to herself, not let anyone bring her down, explore opportunities, network, and reach her full potential.
Oh, my younger self overlooked a lot of opportunities, and as I'm here right now, when I reminisce on certain situations and encounters, I know that I made a lot of mistakes. Now to my older self, there are countless opportunities out there that you could grab to become better. So my older self, be vigilant, be aware, and be prepared to grab any opportunity that can push you to the next. Staying true to yourself, not giving up, keep pushing. These are advices they have to their older self. I've been interacting with students from Unimark IJ. As we mark International Women's Day, they've been sharing the women in their lives that have inspired them, and also they've been sharing advice to their older self. From Unimark IJ here in Accra, my name is Esther A.C. Nkrumah.
Well, it's a good time to bring in women who are already excelling in their various sectors. And joining me now via Zoom is the Chief Executive Officer of the Environmental Protection Authority, Professor Nanama Brown-Kluche. Thank you so much for your time. Also on Zoom is spokesperson and coordinator for International Organization of Transport Logistics in the African Union, Shalima Abiusi. Thank you so much for your time. I'll start with you, Prof, because you are heading a ministry, an authority now, I beg your pardon, and there are lots of expectations when it comes to the job of the EPA. There are issues of illegal mining, there are issues of the environment. I'm wondering, from where you sit as one of the very few women in position and power, how challenging has the journey been for you so far?
Yeah, thank you so much. And let me greet your listeners, and thanks for having me on the show. I must say it's been tough, especially the issue of illegal mining situation in the country. In the country for some time, it's a significant challenge, despite numerous, I would say, interventions placed there. It's a problem we need to solve together as a country. Like, all hands must be on deck. It's not about the presidency only. It's not about the Environmental Protection Authority only. It's not about the security or even political will only. It's about all of us, the citizenry also must be part of this fight. So far, we have rolled up a couple of ideas and programs. Implementation has started slowly. I believe that it will work out. We're not going to work alone as EPA. We have a lot of agencies and authorities to work with. We plan to work with the people of the areas where we have this illegal activities occurring. Mining, we have the minerals on the ground, in the ground. We can mine, it's okay, except for the fact that we cannot mine and destroy our water bodies, especially, destroy our land, especially. When we're destroying our land, yes, we can reclaim. We have methods, technologies to reclaim the land. Destroying our water bodies, reclaiming or restoring the water bodies is very expensive. Once government today, John Mahama committed in doing this, mentioned it in a manifesto to clean up the water bodies that has been polluted. We have put programs in place, and very soon we're going to see the water cleaned up. However, clean the water means we should not allow any more pollution, because cleaning the water is expensive. How do we ensure collectively that all of us Kenyans are protecting our water? This is what we have. This is a natural resource that we have. This is what we depend on for water in the country. Water is part of our environment. We can't do without water. And so we need to protect our water bodies with all the jealousy we can put together on it. And it's a work for all of us. So
I just wanted to get a little update just before you make that point. I want to get a little update. Many raised concerns about the mining licenses issued during the last few days of the previous administration. And the last time we had a conversation, you served notice that EPA, as at your records, the last time you issued permits to any company to mine was as far back as October. How far with your measures to so far crack down on these mining companies, that is, if they're already actively working?
Yes, so very soon we are going to call on these mining companies to review their mining permits and assess their practices. So we will revoke a few licenses. I don't know how many yet, but definitely we have a few illegal activities. We have received reports. We've had a few accidents happening that we need to do investigation. In fact, we started investigation. We need to complete investigation on them and decide what to do with the licenses. But some of them we need to revoke the licenses, especially the mining in the forest reserves. The president has indicated that that is not going to be allowed. And so we're going to revoke some licenses very soon.
And you were in China days back. We're just looking at some of the lessons we're learning from China as well, because China is heavily involved in mining. When you went, what were some of the lessons you learned that we would be implementing here in Ghana?
Yeah, thank you. So when I went, I intentionally visited a river body in Hanjun and even took pictures and videos from that river and saw that people are even fishing in the river bodies. So it's a lesson to us that we should not allow the Chinese to mislead us Ghanaians to destroy our water bodies, because they have kept their water bodies as clean and unpolluted as they prefer it. But if they are leading Ghanaians in artisanal mining, in mining from our water bodies, destroying our water bodies, polluting our water bodies. So the danger here is not just the turbidity, the color of the water that we see. That in the water, heavy metals, in fact, there are also precious metals in the water body. So the heavy metals are not helping with our health at all. And Ghana Water Company find it difficult to clean up these water bodies for our consumption. People feel like not drinking from the tap and drinking from pure water or sachet water or bottled water is good enough to go. The same water we use in cooking, it still gets into our body. The metal don't get cooked out. The metal don't get out of the water when we use it to cook. So virtually, we are doing the same thing. Using the water to cook is as good as drinking it. If it is polluted, we pollute our body. I mean, we get infected. We've had several reports of kidney diseases and other diseases that are related to heavy metal that is present in our food, that is present in our water, and this is not good enough for us as a country. We are heading towards a very dangerous grounds for our health as a country. And you see that these reports, medical reports, are coming out from a certain group or age group of people in the country. We have to immediately tackle, as a matter of urgency, deal with this polluted water situation in the country. So it's not also, again, about just water, but even the land is equally polluted. from both large-scale miners and small-scale miners, legal and illegal mining activities are all getting our land soil polluted. So we need to clean up our soils. We need to clean up our water bodies. There's a lesson we can learn again from China. Their water is clean, their land is clean. Why should we allow our land to be polluted, led by Chinese with the various technologies they bring into the country? It is our duty as a country to regulate every activity that we undertake on the environment in the country.
Okay, you were in Keta. Now I can see you're on the road. You're going to Cape Coast. I'll let you hint us on what exactly is happening and what you are up to. But then before that, how do you find a fine balance as a mother, as a wife, as the CEO of one of the most important authorities, and also a professor, meaning you're in academia as well? How do you find a fine balance?
Yes, so I moved from academia, from the University of Ghana to the EPA. At the University of Ghana, I was teaching, obviously, as a professor, and I was also doing my research in climate change and environment. So basically, I'm doing what I used to do in my small corner, but now doing it for the whole country. It's much bigger and I would say more impactful. So we've done a lot of studies in books, and now I'm doing the implementation. It is exciting and at the same time challenging for me.
For those of them at home, I know that because you're always on the go, they barely have time to see you. How do you find that fine balance, ensuring that they get time to see mommy and you are still on the road?
Yes, I try to do my evening hours and early morning hours with them. I try as much as possible. A few weekends as well, and then holidays with them. I missed yesterday's holiday because I had to move to Abegaji, Salakope, and Amotiano area because of the coastal erosion, tidal waves. The president moved there yesterday, and as EPA, we had to move with him to do the assessment together. We earlier visited the area in the Volta region to do an assessment of the level of degradation by the sea level rise or coastal erosion, reported same to the president, and we thank the media very much for helping us with the publicity of the needs to intervene in that restoring back their land and providing sea defense for their area. And so the president took heed to this and visited the place yesterday, promised to immediately intervene in the situation. So I had to be with him at these areas, and I miss spending time with my family. But it's all good. They understand we have urgent environmental situations to deal with in the country.
But based on your initial assessment, especially with Agaveji, how long will it take to fix the current problem there?
I would say we should have fixed it as early as yesterday. We don't have time. The EPA was there about 2 weeks ago. And going back there yesterday, we realized the level of degradation is happening so fast, so quick, that I would say we don't have time at all. So immediately we need to intervene. Luckily, I was there with President Mahama. He's an engineer himself. And so we assess what we can do immediately together. And I hope that with the president's statement, that he's going to ensure the finance minister put a budget line to the sea defense in that area or the intervention that they need immediately next week. We're hoping that sometime next week, the work will start at that area to get the place, have the solution that they need.
Okay. As we let you go, I'll just leave you to advise every young girl watching us. 2 minutes. What are some of the key things that they can do and adopt to help improve their life, especially in this 21st century? Oh dear, I seem to have lost Prof. I'm hoping that I can get her back on. I'm now.
Here. You can hear, yeah. So what you said, what they can do to improve upon their life?
Yes.
Yes. So what has actually helped me through my life is hard work and boldness. So I believe that hard work pays, and you need to be bold also to win some favors on your side. So we need to be bold, or I advise my younger siblings to be bold and also work hard.
Thank you so much, Prof. Yeah. I appreciate you for your time here, and I celebrate you as well. I'm sure we'll meet privately and have that celebration, because here at Joy News, we're celebrating women the whole week, in fact. Expect conversations like this. Well, I have somebody joining me as well. I'm very excited about this one. Shalima Abusi joins me live as well as we put a spotlight on women and some of their great achievements. Thank you so much for your time. Pardon us for keeping you on for that long, but then it's a conversation I cannot but have this afternoon. Thank you so much for your time here on The Pulse. I just want to get your thoughts initially. As a woman, as a woman in media, there are lots of misconceptions really about this job and our role in it. Share with me your story and how you managed to swim through all this misconception and still rise to the rank that you are in right now.
First of all, thank you so much for having me. I am so honored to be here today and celebrate International Women's Day. And today I am proud to be here as a woman and hopefully to inspire young women and other women all across the world. And thank you so much for this opportunity. I think there are a lot of misconceptions out there, indeed, especially in the media space, but when we lead by example and we stay true to ourselves, I think that is how we defeat the misconceptions, because we cannot take away that people will always have something to say. There will always be negatives. There will always be people who want to make noise. But if you stay true to yourself and you know what you stand for and you lead by example and you show the world, you let your works and your actions speak, I think that is very important.
You have an NGO and you also work with the AU. Highlight some of your key achievements so far and how the journey has been.
Well, you know my story, so it hasn't been easy at all. It has been very challenging, but it also made me into the person that I am today, and I wouldn't want to have it any other way, because ever since I've been redirected in life in a very good way. I've launched my NGO, indeed. I have a role now within the ECOSOC African Union body. I was recently invited by His Excellency, the Vice President in Sierra Leone, to speak about governance and how I can support the vision and the mission of His Excellency to support and put Sierra Leone on the map, basically. And something that was very interesting there is that they have the GWE Act. President Bio signed the GWE Act, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, which empowers women in leadership and governance. And I thought that was so eye-opening. And I just heard in the previous conversation that Ghana is doing the same. So I think as a collective, we are moving forward for women, and we are creating a conducive platform for women to let their voice be heard, especially in governance and leadership.
Here in Ghana, we have signed the Affirmative Action Bill, but for other women across the country struggling to find a voice, having been in the space for a while, what advice would you give to them?
I think it's important to know what you stand for, know your calling, know what you're about, and don't let anything or anyone shake you. Listen to that voice within and find the platform, build that platform yourself to let your voice be heard. And there will always be things that will shake you, but don't let it break you. Anything that you go through, you can use it and you can grow and learn from it to become a better woman.
Has there been any time in your career where you felt like it's high time I give up, probably because of the challenges you were facing, How did you maneuver your way through that time, especially because as women, we have different emotions? How did you go about it?
Absolutely. I think for me, the key is being prayerful and being resilient. I believe that women have a resilience that is unmeasured. When we believe in ourselves, we can accomplish so much. We can move mountains. The woman of one voice can be extremely powerful to create change. And I believe that navigating those challenges, yes, we are emotional beings, but managing and learning how to deal with those emotions is very important. And I think that comes with maturity. As a woman, when you mature and when you learn how to deal with those emotions and to use them to strengthen your vision and your work, because you can channel those emotions into positive things. I think that is very key. And being prayerful, as I said, for me personally, was also what contributed to overcoming the challenges that I've been through.
We're seeing commitment from this administration to ensure fair female representation when it comes to appointments. But then around the world and in Africa, to be precise, how best do you feel governments can aid to ensure women get a voice in governance?
That's a very good question. And if we're being honest, it is a man's world. We live in a man's world, but we have to learn as women how to navigate it. And I believe that men, particularly in governance and in leadership roles, can contribute to the empowerment of women by creating a conducive environment and giving women a platform. And I'm not saying that women should be given opportunities based on the fact that we are just women and we need X amount of percentage of women in leadership and governance. No, I believe in the merit, and I believe that a lot of women, so many women are capable and have the qualities. So as a collective, I think that we should work together, that we should collaborate, and men play a huge and pivotal role in giving women a platform. Men in business, men in leadership roles, men in governance, they can assure that the environment is safe, is conducive for women, and that the voice of women can be heard. And as a woman, we also have to take responsibility by standing our ground, being strong and courageous, being bold, and letting our voice being heard.
Thank you so much, Salima, for your time here on The Pulse. And just before we wrap up that conversation, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to the leadership of the multimedia group, to our leaders here at Joy News for giving us the opportunity to talk about some of the key things that affect us as women and giving us the platform really to be seen, to be heard, to be valued as women. I'd like to extend our gratitude to editor Fred Smith for giving us this mandate, for our channel manager, Kweku Usuprepa, and also the general manager as well, Fifi Kumsin. We appreciate you so much. To all the men, you know, this show is hosted by a man, Elton Robe, and he decided to exit his seat today for me. Thank you so much. We appreciate you because we appreciate you. Our directors, our camera technicians, always cheering us on. We want to say thank you so much. We appreciate you. And my producer, my one and only Carlos Caloni, always cheering us on. Thank you so much for giving women the platform to be seen, to be heard, and to be valued. Now, away from that, 4 environmental protection groups are calling for the replacement of the executive director of the Minerals Commission. They argue that the current leadership has failed to enforce responsible mining practices that protect both society and the environment. As a result, the group insists that President John Dramani Mahama must appoint new leadership to restore public trust in the government's fight against illegal mining. They also highlight that other pressing concerns that require immediate attention has been left unattended. Darabosu joins me right now. He is Deputy National Coordinator of Arocha Ghana, and he joins me just to share his thoughts about this. But before we go to him, watch this. Whilst we wait to bring you that, I'll bring in Daryl before we play the cue. Daryl, thank you so much for your time. I want to better understand your key concerns, really. What exactly are you expecting of government?
Thank you very much for having me. And I think that we are all witnesses to what is happening across the country. I mean, we're in the communities just some few days back, and farmers are complaining about they losing their farms to illegal miners. There are vegetable farmers who are also complaining that the water they are using to nourish the vegetables are polluted, and now they are starting not to even be bothered because if government is sitting down to watch their water bodies to be destroyed, they are also going to serve them the food on their plate. So I think that there are serious concerns that are left unaddressed, and we believe that government needs to start prioritizing these things. And one of them that we want to mention has to do with the repeal of LI 2462. As if you remember, just before the previous government left office, there were efforts to revoke LI 2462. We all agree. And even the current government also agrees that LI is bad law for this country and is not supportive of our sustainable forest management. So there was a need to actually revoke that. That came in several manifesto statements and commitments. And we are really sad that 2 months into office, we've not seen this action being realized. And that's why we think that the government needs to prioritize the revocation of LI 2462, just as he's setting up committees and also setting up a committee to look at oral and all those issues. We believe addressing issues of mining in our forest reserves and also within our rivers is very crucial, or just as the other issues that he's prioritizing now. Then again, we've also observed that we, particularly when it comes to law enforcement, we are not really achieving all the gains against Galamsey because we are not getting significant or sufficient support from law enforcement agencies. And we don't understand why the law enforcement agencies sit in various landscapes and still the impunity continues. Particularly within the Eastern region, we have had calls to call out the inefficiency of the police there, and we're calling out on DCOP, Bwedi Bosman, who is also the Eastern South Police Commander, and as well as the ACP Reno Sam. These officers are the heads of very important police divisions in the Chebi area who have supervised over Galamsey impunity, and we believe that they don't deserve to be holding on to that office. So just as we are calling for the replacement of the Minerals Commissions, but we also believe that the government, if they really want to see results, they need to start reforming the leadership within our law enforcement agencies across board to ensure that we have new and dedicated people who want to see the right things done.
Thank you, Daryl, for just highlighting some of your key concerns. Have you submitted an official petition yet?
We have actually submitted several petitions to the current administration, some of them very silently on the back of they assuming office through several other platforms, Ghana Coalition Against Galamsey, and this is also coming from several groups that we've been working with. So there we are talking to some of these leadership and institutions almost all the time. The question is that we are still not seeing those proactive measures that needs to get these issues resolved. So, and that is why today we thought that we bring these issues also up, because we don't see why we should have these issues still persistent. And if you listen to the Professor Nana Brown of the EPA, I mean, the issues are really dire now. And if you don't take steps to reverse the loss of our lands and also the pollution of our rivers, I mean, all of us are eventually going to feel the pressure. And I think already communities are already suffering from several ailments that we have not even taken steps. It looks like here you are sick, nobody bothers what is really killing you, but slowly we die. And I think that this is where I think we need to start prioritizing everything that harms our environment, because eventually we don't have the systems to address it. So we need to then take steps to avoid them in the first place.
And finally, before I let you go, have you given government any timelines in your petition?
There is no timeline. I mean, we believe that the timeline the government should give themselves is immediately, because when before they came to office, they promised to ban illegal mining, particularly in forest reserves. And I think that it is taking too long. If there is any time that action should be done, it should be now. Like today. So I think that government should really take these issues seriously. The more we allow these issues to fester, it becomes pervasive, and the miners also become so emboldened and they get into spaces that they didn't used to be. And this is where we are really afraid of. I think we've already heard about how the miners are getting armed and all of that, taking up forest reserves, and it's becoming a big fight for the Forestry Commission, where we see that even when they go to burn excavators, these miners find ways to go for these equipment. And I think our key problem has also been the fact that we tend to see that the police, even in some of these areas, have a soft approach in dealing with the miners, whilst they rather see state agencies or public officers who are doing their job to protect these forest reserves as more the enemies. And I think this must stop. So I believe that the government must prioritize the actions against Galamsey. I mean, just like yesterday, we are too far behind. And the more we wait, the more we lose the fight.
Thank you so much, Darrell. Away from that, the Akimabwakwa Traditional Council has petitioned the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, demanding a retraction and an apology for what they describe as unsavory comment made on the floor by a member against their revered son and icon, Dr. J.B. Dankwa. Presenting the petition to the Clerk of Parliament a while ago, convener for the Coalition for Youth Development in that constituency demanded that the Speaker compels the MP in question to apologize.
On that day, the Honourable Member for Bakwa South, Dr. Kingsley Ajiman, in the lawful exercise of parliamentary duty, delivered a commemorative statement in honor of the late Dr. Joseph Boakye Dankwa, an eminent statesman, scholar, a pivotal figure in Ghana's constitutional development. In the course of those proceedings, the Honourable Murtala Muhammad, Member of Parliament for Tamale Central, in contributing to the discussion, made remarks that are now a matter of record, asserting that, quote, it is important to emphasize the point that he, J.B. Dankwa, into brackets, betrayed his state. Further to this, the Honourable Member reportedly referenced Martin Maridate, the state of Africa, alleging that Dr. Dankwa was an operative of the United States Central Intelligence Agency, to bracket CIA, and received remuneration to act against the interests of Ghana. These statements, unsubstantiated and historically questionable, misrepresent the legacy of Dr. Dankwa and risk perpetuating inaccuracies in the official records of Parliament. While we acknowledge and uphold the right of members of Parliament to free speech and debate within the confines of Article 115 of the 1992 Constitution, such privilege carries with a duty to ensure that parliamentary discourse is grounded in factual accuracy and historical integrity. Moreover, Article 116 of the Constitution provides for inquiry into any statement that, upon prima facie examination, warrants corrective measures in the interest of fairness and accuracy. In the light of foregoing, we respectfully petition this Honourable House to 1. Direct the remarks in question be expunged from the parliamentary records to ensure that the official proceedings of this esteemed institution remain an accurate and credible account of history. 2. Require the Honourable Murtala Muhammad, MP, to issue a formal and unequivocal apology on the floor of Parliament, retracting his statements and acknowledging this inaccuracy. This course of action is necessary to preserve the dignity of parliamentary discourse, uphold the integrity of historical truth, and reaffirm the responsibility of members of Parliament to engage in fact-based debate.
Well, that's Ochimani Ebwa, he spokesperson for the group, now receiving the petition on behalf of the Speaker of Parliament. The Clerk of Parliament, Ebenezer Tete, assured that their concerns will be directed to the Speaker for further actions.
The concerns presented will definitely be brought to the attention of the Right Honourable Speaker for his appropriate, response. Okay. We want to assure you that Parliament remains responsive to the needs of the public and concerns of the public. In that regard, in due course, I believe that Right Honorable Speaker may take the appropriate action he deems fit in that regard. Thank you very much for this, exercise.
Well, still on International Women's Day, in a world where shoemaking is often seen as a man's craft, Lucy is lacing up and breaking barriers. Once dreaming of steering a truck, she now shapes leather, stitches, sews, and carves her own path, proving that passion knows no gender. There's more in this report by my colleague, Jacqueline Ansmayewa.
Inside a small workshop in Osu, the rhythmic tap of a hammer and the steady hum of a filing machine set the tone for Lucy's daily grind. With precision and skill, she measures, cuts and stitches, transforming raw materials into beautifully handcrafted shoes. Lucy has always been drawn to unconventional careers. She once dreamed of becoming a truck driver, but her mother wasn't on board. Instead, she found her true calling in shoemaking, a trade dominated by men where she's had to fight for recognition.
I thought of, doing something else because I searched of things I could do. I'm like, I can't do makeup. And at first, I wanted to learn how to drive truck, be a truck. Yeah, so
it looks like you are the daring type.
Yes. So that was how I started my journey as a shoemaker.
Okay. Yeah. But what happened to the truck dream?
Oh yeah, it didn't work because my mom, she was very dramatic and she was like, if out of anything, since it's shoemaking, you do it instead of doing something riskier.
Yeah. What has been some of the challenges though?
Stereotype. When I go to the market and I'm trying to select leathers, materials, and the male shoemakers, they come in and they're like, "Are you a shoemaker?" I'm like, "Yes." "Oh, you made what you are wearing?" Because I barely buy shoe or slippers. Whatever I wear, I make myself. And they're like, "Oh, you made this?" I'm like, "Yes." They say, "Oh no," they don't believe it. And sometimes they go on my Instagram page to see. Sometimes when they are coming back, they do pass here to see me working, and they have to stay for long to be sure that, you don't actually give it out to people. Sometimes
is it that they are surprised about the outcome of your work?
Yeah, they are surprised by the outcome of my work because they're like, it's neat. Sometimes they don't believe. They have to come here to see for themselves.
But Lucy lets her craftsmanship speak for itself. She walks us through the creative process, cutting, shaping, stitching, and polishing each pair to perfection.
This is a foam board. Yeah, this is a foam board. So I'm about to cut out the size of the slippers I'm doing. This is a size 39. For a platform slippers, but the platform is not the high one. Yeah. So this is actually the first step you go in making that.
Her proudest moment, owning her own shop and turning her passion into a thriving business.
My proudest and biggest moment so far was I wasn't here before, where I was in another workspace that wasn't really convenient for me and comfortable. I was not able to keep my stuff there because I'm scared they shouldn't steal it, not until I got this place.
Her advice to young women pursuing unconventional careers is simple.
Don't let the stereotype define you. Don't let that, and dare to do it, dare to take that risk. Sometimes you might be like, will I fail? Will this thing work? Just try. Because if you don't try doing it, you won't know if it's going to work for you.
This International Women's Day, Lucy's message is clear. Women can step into any field, own their craft and thrive. And with every stitch, she's proven that some glass ceilings aren't just broken. They're walked all over in perfectly handmade shoes. Jacqueline and Sumaya Boy's report, read to you.
Well, 2 people were killed, several others injured when a man drove his vehicle into a crowd in the western city of Mannheim on Monday. Now, this is the 3rd car ramming incident in recent months in Germany. For more, we're joined by one of our correspondents at DW, Thomas Power. Thank you so much for your time joining us live from Berlin. What more have authorities really said about the suspect?
Authorities are focusing on the motivation behind this car ramming incident in the city of Mannheim. And so far, they have stated that based on the information that they have, they do not believe that the man acted based on political or religious motivations. And the focus is specifically now on potential mental health issues. Authorities have searched the man's house in a nearby region in the town of Ludwigshafen. They're also looking very closely at his social media posts, both on Facebook and on a Russian platform named VK, to try and identify what could have led him to actually drive his vehicle into the crowd in Mannheim at a time when a lot of people were actually out and about because it's carnival season here in Germany. So far, the focus is on potential mental health issues and not so much on possible political or religious motivations.
Authorities planning to prevent some of these accidents.
One thing that authorities have stressed, and they've stressed it, by the way, not only now, but in previous incidents as well, is the need to focus more on prevention. That's one key word that you often hear from authorities after security incidents. A second element that is a big topic of discussion in Germany is more surveillance, especially in public spaces. That's another very tricky thing here in Germany because there are privacy laws in Germany that are much more strict than in other parts of the world. And a third element is more visible police presence in public spaces, in particular at times when people are going to be out and about in cities like Mannheim or in other major cities like Cologne or Berlin, Munich or Hamburg. So those are 3 elements that authorities are definitely discussing, while at the same time stressing that they cannot guarantee 100% security and that they do not want to turn German cities into fortresses where people do not feel free.
Are these incidents having on Germans and German authority? Let's highlight the impact.
This is the 3rd major car ramming incident in recent months, but it's important to stress that all 3 incidents were different in terms of motivation. There was one in the eastern German city of Magdeburg during a Christmas market. The man behind that was a Saudi national with anti-Muslim views. There was one in Munich in February. The man behind that was an Afghan asylum seeker, and authorities said he had Islamist views. And now authorities are looking here in the case of Mannheim to possible mental health issues. So all these issues are different in nature. However, they do have 2 things in common. One is that they have become the major issue of political debate in Germany, especially ahead of the election in February 23rd that was won by the conservative bloc CDU-CSU. And second, that basically they're heightening a sense of insecurity among many Germans that essentially feel that more needs to be done to protect their public spaces. This is one of several major security incidents in recent times here in the country.
Thank you, Thomas, for that update. Join us all the way from Berlin. And that's how we'll wrap up the show, The Pulse Today, here on the Joy News channel. My name is Faustina Safo. Thank you so much for making time to join us. We'll be back on Monday. Please stay tuned in.